Tashi Dalek, everybody. Welcome to Sunday morning meditation. It is great to see some usual faces and some new faces today. So before we get started, I have a couple announcements. If you haven't already silenced your cell phones, please do so at this time. And while you're doing that, I'm going to get an updated announcement sheet. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so now everyone's cell phones are silenced. If you have an emergency phone call, please take it outside the meditation hall. But let's look at what other great things we have going on. Next Tuesday, Geshe Pendala will continue speaking on the 37 practices of a bodhisattva. That practice is online and in person here at Drepung. Next Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m., the Drepung Loseling monks conduct evening prayers for His Holiness the Dalai Lama's long life and other teachers. Join us for our weekly Thursday Protector Puja at 4:30 p.m. as the Drepung Loseling monks conduct the Protector Puja for smooth journeys, successive interviews, medical treatments, new businesses, etc. We are thrilled to announce that the Simon & Schuster will be releasing Engaged Compassion by Geshe Lobsabg Tenzin Negi this Tuesday, May 12th. On Sunday, next week, May 17th, Geshe Lobsabg Law will lead our 11 a.m. meditation session, and we invite you to stay afterwards for a reception and book signing at noon. Information on how you can pre-order the book through various major booksellers is available in the lobby and on our website. Geshe Pende will lead the Drepung Loseling Monastery's annual Nyungne retreat from May 29th through June 1st. Nyungne is a powerful practice for purification and the accumulation of positive energy. It is based on Avalokiteshvara, the Buddha of compassion. This is open to those who have received the 1,000-arm Avalokiteshvara empowerment or any highest yoga tantra empowerment. As a part of Sakadawa, Geshe Pendala will also give a one-day Manayana precepts that entails maintaining 8 vows beginning from 5 a.m. until sunrise on the next morning, Sunday, May 31st. This event is open to any who have taken refuge and will last approximately 1 hour. You do not need to attend the Nyungne retreat to participate. As a reminder, please do not park on the grass along the driveway or behind the building. If the lot is full, overflow parking can be found via Skyline Drive at the John Lewis Elementary School outside of school operating hours. Only access the school parking lot via Skyline Drive and walk through to our site. Information on all events can be found in the lobby and on our website at drepung.org. If anyone is interested in opportunities to volunteer to get more involved in supporting our center and programs, please see me or our volunteer coordinator, Michael DeFell. If you are interested in becoming a member to support our ongoing programs and take advantage of benefits like discounts on courses and retreat, applications are available in the library. You can also register online. There's a donation box near the entrance to this room. Your generous support helps us to continue to offer programs and services like this to the Atlanta community and to those around the world through our online platforms. Now, as is our custom, please stand as we invite our founder and spiritual director, Geshe Lobsabg Law, to come in for today's practice.
Good morning. Happy Mother's Day to those who are mothers here and also online. It's a beautiful tradition, isn't it, to celebrate mothers? What do you think? Yes. Yes. You know, we are, the past 3-4 days, we have been in a retreat on compassion. And when it comes to compassion, the symbol for compassion, the kindness. The mother is a symbol for kindness, the compassion. So I want to take a moment for us to extend your greetings, your appreciations to the mother, to all the mothers on this earth. Yeah, when it comes to compassion as its source that really nurture us, our societies, it's no wonder that why the mothers would be seen as that source of kindness, because for most, unfortunately not for everyone, but for many people, most of us, the mothers, fathers also, so for those of fathers here, don't get discouraged. You have been the great source as well. But the mothers, who carried us in her womb for 9 months, just making every kind of effort to not hurt, and then we are born also. Most mothers have been the primary caregiver for us, from mother's milk that we first got the nourishment. In mother's womb also, mothers, we shared that from the mothers, what nourished us to grow from the fetus to ready to come in this world. Not quite ready, actually. When you think about it, we came out with totally helpless. If we were left unattended, unlike many babies of other animals, we would have perished if we were left unattended. We had not where to chew any food, and like that. Mother's milk is what sustained us there. That in this big world, coming out of that warm, cozy environment into this open world, which could have been, quite unsettling to a baby. It's the mother's warm kind of touch, where she may have held us against her chest, that beating heart, that touch, that must have seemed so familiar, because we were in that body for 9 months. That must have reassured that, yeah, we are safe. What do you think about? Pardon me?
No, I said mothers are important.
Mothers are important, yes, very important, yes. That's why when you think about the compassion, like the compassion, today I want to talk a little bit about compassion, because we have been doing this compassion retreat, and towards the end of the compassion, so I like to focus on a little bit on compassion. In the Buddhist tradition, when we think about compassion, actually one of the steps for compassion, the early steps, is recognizing others as your mother. Marshe, it's called. Recognizing. And I'll say this, that not with the understanding that, not every mother may have been in the position to care for their child, but generally, I'm just using, generally, that's how it is. So there is a special bond between child and the mother. It's not even something that with child start thinking, I'm getting this milk and so I should feel good about my mother. Not like that. It's in the biology. That's something that has evolved long time ago. As we talk about how, as living beings, for us to survive, for us to live, nature has endowed with certain capacities in us. Number one, of course, any living being, down to the simplest of the organism, needed to have some capacity to sense, what might undermine their survival. So therefore, avoid that. What threat system, as it is referred to, threat systems. That's what, in the presence of the danger, sensing that threat, with our nervous system, our system, mobilizes, by eliciting the stress response, fight or flight. Important, very important capacity. Of course, for us to live, as a little organism, to survive, to flourish, it's not just the dangers that we need to avoid that might eliminate us. That's one part. But we also need the resources that can actually make us grow, make us, there are other nutrients and so forth and so on, needs, basic needs that can support life. So we have evolved, nature has endowed us this system, the reward system, something that we need it. When we have it, it is conducive for our life, prolongs life. Reward system that when you have it, it feels better. So that's why you approach, instead of running away from that, approaching something that is helpful for us. But then, as mammals, for us, or particularly living together with others, those biological needs are one thing, but as we evolved, we needed also to come together, live together. Because alone, it's much harder to survive. Together is much better. So necessarily there had to be some system that have to evolve that helps us bond with others. Because, just 2-3 beings in the sharing same space doesn't mean that there will be a sense of connection. togetherness if each one is just drifting its own way. But there had to be some way that connects us, affiliative systems. Particularly, then when affiliative system, that is that bonding part between the mother and the child. That's where, for most early life, early societies and like that, certainly mothers have been the main caregivers at how much time they spend with the little baby, attached to them, just not in the womb, I'm talking about after we are born. What makes the child and the mother to bond? I mean, there's some, this biological dispositions that you have that makes it connect, and to drive the mother's, the father's attention to that young, helpless baby. And if they are struggling, they feel their pain. That moves them, it moves them to protect them, provide the needs, and like that. So those systems are there. So therefore, it seems like that that those kind of pre-programmed, if you will, that kind of innate the capacity to connect with that certain feeling of warm-heartedness with those crucial caregivers is in our system, in our biology. That's wonderful that we have that. But in the compassion, when we're talking about the expanding that, one way that we can do that is to see where it comes naturally, that feeling of closeness. For us, many of us, it's with the mother. So therefore, in literally Buddhist tradition, we talk about, one of the early stages of expanding compassion, to bring our compassion to more and more people, is by seeing them as our mother, like that. And of course, in the Buddhist tradition, it is kind of connected with this Buddhist metaphysics or the beliefs. That is that the Buddhists believe that each and every one of us has been circling in this, not this particular universe, but the existing universes, from the beginningless time, in the cycle of death and rebirth, known as samsara cycle. So in that infinite lifetimes, it's mathematically impossible for us to not have been each other's mother. Unconditionally caring mother for a number of times. That's the metaphysics, like that. So of course you don't have to buy into that, that. But that's the metaphysics to someone who believes. The point here is to really evoke that sense of closeness. If you do have that, unfortunately, sometimes, if that early caregiving was missing, that that bonding, even though biologically we come with that, it doesn't get nurtured, and then we kind of drift apart with some between children and parents that also happen. That particularly when you think about in modern times when everybody is so rushed and busy, so many demands, so much stress, and the parents are struggling too, They are sometimes battling their own demons with the addiction and with the stress, with the other issues and like that. It's hard for them to be 100% with their children. And then particularly if they have to work also to go, like that. Nowadays it takes both parents to work to have enough food and like that. So, it's hard, for parents. They are human beings too, like hard for them to be available, present, if they are struggling with their own emotional problems, depression and like that. It's very hard, like that. Not that, they are, it's intentionally they don't care, but the circumstances that lead to those emotional difficulties that they can't pour that love, and that's also happening, right? Like there's so many of the modern society. You do feel that how that actually affecting so many children, that, and then you're growing and without that kind of those strengths, that would naturally otherwise would be there. But anyway, the idea is that for those who do have a close feeling of that tenderness, bonding, then to see other people in that role, it kind of unleashes that feeling of tenderness. I'm not talking about, speaking of metaphysics here, this is not necessarily kind of just need to be like the Buddhist metaphysics, that for Buddhists it's fine. For the Christians or the monotheists, again, if there are plenty of monotheists, culturally monotheists, but not really, that connected to. It's different, like that. But if you do really resonate with this, that yes, every person here is made in the image of that almighty, loving, divine being, then that would evoke the similar feeling towards others. That now you are not seeing everybody as your mother, but someone who is made in the image of the God. And so, like your sister and the brother, and like that, like that. When you think about that, does that bring a kind of certain sense of intimacy? This is something that I think it's beautiful, like these religious systems, even though metaphysics, somehow intuitively knowing that what triggers, what unleashes that feeling of closeness, intimacy, bonding. Whether it's seeing us made in the image of the God, God's children, or seeing everyone around one's loving mother or father, like that. It's in some ways that it's kind of connecting to what biologically that we are predisposed to feel. That in the anthropologists and scientists, when they talk about what may have contributed to this thing called altruism, our capacity to care for others, this altruistic feelings, what may have contributed? Because they are not talking about the God and karma and like that, not the previous life, not scientifically talking about. What may have contributed to. They talk about the kin selection theory of altruism. Kinship. Just looking at the beings, whether it's animals or the human beings, there is a certain bonding that happens between the kins, like whether brother, sister, or the mother, children. And that's what I mean, that it's set aside the religious views, whether it has been mother or not, or they made in the image of God or not. Let it aside. Just looking at how animals, how humans, we all, where do you see that more of this kind of caring, love, that easy to flow towards? It's towards your kins, that generally speaking. And that's what the nature has endowed us, that's how so you can see that how these religious systems are kind of, that intuitively tapping into that what would unleash that feeling of bonding, the tenderness. Looking at the mothers are the kins, brothers, sisters are kins also, except that the brothers, that they are, from the little age that you see that they are of our own parents, children, and like that. But for others, we need to use a little bit about the metaphysics and beliefs, of the gods. Or, mother and you, that they say you're born in her, lap and milking her, kind of drinking her milk and like that. So they say, but others we need to kind of use, if we may use this belief that, they have been my mother also, or father, or like that. So you see that how, when we think about the compassion, it's that sense of closeness, tenderness is really the key. And I heard His Holiness the Dalai Lama actually, that saying, when he gives the public talks, when he was traveling, nowadays he doesn't travel, he's 90 years old. But when he was traveling, giving public talks in big gatherings, he would tell the people, that draw from your own tradition. That no need to become Buddhist or like that. He's a Buddhist teacher, but that from your tradition, each traditions have these wonderful insights. So that he would say that for Buddhists, we see, for compassion, seeing all people as our mother, but you can see, if this theology resonates with you, then it's, try to see all beings as your brothers and sisters, the children of the same loving God, like that. So that's the why I'm saying this is that when we think about compassion, how important is sense of bonding today for us, like that. Whether religious or not, this is something that if we don't have it, we suffer, and that in today's society we need more than anything is that connection, tender connection. That is what we needed, more than we need oil. What's happening right now, when oil prices are going up, that we have wars going on, all those things, and then we're panicking, that modern life, that we have made of our lives such that we're so dependent on these oils, fossil oils, and like that. A long time ago, 300, 400, 500 years ago, I think they did think that was the fossil fuel was that central to our, flourishing. I don't know, when were the motors made, invented, cars that need the fossil fuel? How long ago? Huh? About 100 years? Yeah, so think about before that. Life, What's going on? Very, what we needed was the care and love of each other. Always we needed in the family was that compassion, love. That's what kept us going. So these are so fundamental needs. When we don't feel that connection, that tenderness, that warmth, that connection, it just becomes so, difficult to feel good, to thrive, to have, and that's why that, this modern society, on some level, it's very complex. But if we forget what helps us stay connected, I'm not talking about the internet or the Facebook, like that. And this also keep us connected to some degree, yes. But also the research shows that, since 1980s, even though our electronic connection has doubled, quadrupled, or manifold. In the 80s that we didn't have social media. Now, some people have millions of social media friends. Many people have hundreds and like that. But the loneliness, feeling lonely, has doubled. People feeling lonely. It's an epidemic, right? In America, it's an epidemic. It's true in other countries also. Feeling, and that how we feel disconnected, lonely, when you don't feel safe, it becomes much harder to live. That loneliness. We are built to connect, to thrive, feel better, having others in our life, to have other people that we can feel connected to. It's a psychological state. It's not about how many people on our Facebook we have, or even around us, how many people are around us. It's how many people we feel connected. That when you are around, you feel that warmth. You feel that warmth in your chest also towards them. That's what is needed, like that. So that's the thing that we need to promote when we think about the compassion. That when we think about why we need to promote compassion, is that because without which we don't flourish. We don't enjoy life that much. We don't function that well. We can't connect with others that well. So that's why we need to have promote that sense of connection with others. Like that. Yeah, the modern society, as I said, that is a feeling of disconnection is growing. But on the other hand, research after research, the longitudinal research, like that, they are big, for some research that's happening for the last 80 plus years, like this Harvard study, that started 80 some years ago and then still following, still going on. People who do really well, who are still remain healthy, happy, good quality of life, more than anything, it is the connection that predicts their longevity, the good health, not the wealth, not IQ, how smart we are. It's the connection, how good a relationship that we have. And those good relationships don't happen, the transactional relations are not something that, we can say good relation. Good relation is where that, somebody is struggling, it gives you joy to do something. It just gives, that's what, if you receive reciprocity, that happens. That's what the family, where we can flourish, between the spouses, between the boss and the workers, and like that. So that's why it shows that the greater social connectivity we have, the greater quality of life we have, less struggles with problems like depression, anxiety, and like that, burnout, loneliness, and things like that. So that being the case, I actually was reading an article, the Harvard Business Review. Recently I was giving a talk to some business leaders about the compassion, why compassion. And doing some research, I found this article. It shows that a survey they have done with the leading the CEOs of the leading companies, about 1,000 CEOs. These are presidents, CEOs of big companies. And then to ask what are the things that are most important for them to succeed, as leaders, that they can create the better environment, they can succeed. What are some of the qualities of the leader? The compassion ranks number one, like that. 800 of them, out of 1,000, 800 said that they ranked compassion as the most important part. But then they also said that we don't know how to be more compassionate. They see the importance of that, but they so said that we don't know how to be compassionate, how to promote that, how we can build that, like that. This is the thing that's where I think the science is showing that what is needed. But the how part, we have to learn either from our mothers, the grandmothers, the parents, how that happened, as well as from the spiritual traditions that who have noticed that, intuitively saw that was important, and taught how to be more compassionate, how to build the connection. And that's why that whether it is to tell that we are all made in the image of the God, or to tell that that the things like that treat others as you want to be treated, empathy, perspective taking, and like that. These are all must have resonated with our ancestors. That's why these traditions still exist. If it didn't resonate, when they started seeing this way, if it didn't do anything good, if it still made them drift apart, those traditions would not have survived. Or the Buddhist tradition said that, like that, we were reborn, and we took karmically, and then that this life we have previous lives, and that way to connect with, create that bonding with other people who are not our kins. So that is what I think, that it's a very powerful, that when you really think about that, how to emotionally come to this sense of connection. If you can do that, but today we are living in the society, that many of us may have some, culturally we can say that we are this and that, they affiliate with this and that religion, but for many it doesn't really resonate, those beliefs, like in this scientific era. We take this for the big grain of salt, like it's Yeah, maybe when we are really ill and then like that, so maybe then. But generally speaking, church growing has become more of a kind of this, the social thing to do for many, like that. So here, what can we do? How can we, if the religion, those who have whatever religion believes that can help you bond with others, connect, bring this emotional sense of connection, that's wonderful. Yeah, that's what the Dalai Lama is saying, that stay, that in your culture, in your religion, that if that speaks to you, that there's no need to, just learn from each other, stay. But if these, kind of long-held belief systems don't really resonate with us, then are we doomed? Or we can, pay attention to the science, what the science is saying. Of course, that there are also science skeptics also. We're dismantling our science institutions left and right now. That's not to say that every science research done is valid. That of course there are many that, because it's a messy thing. What is real to measure. But nonetheless, if you do, modern society that does have quite a trust in the careful observation through the research, as is demonstrating that we have, then we can pay attention to that. That's what I was saying, these Harvard studies and all those things. If it resonates with you, then we can see, what are some of the ways that promote that bonding. So, okay, kin, if they're coming from the kin selection, the way I see it, utilizing this belief system, you can get to that kinship, that's what we are doing. But fortunately, there has been another kind of way of looking at how people act more altruistically. Another the factor that contributes to, and that is the reciprocity, reciprocal, altruism, as they say. Robert Trivers was the one that coined the term, anthropologist, reciprocal altruism, reciprocity. What is that? And here we're not taking the belief metaphysics, the observation. This is, and that is that reciprocity, the altruism. If someone helps us, we become predisposed to help them. That is in our blood too. The animals do that. That when somebody helps them, they are more inclined to help back. Not like calculating in the transactional way, you scratch my back and I will scratch your back. Not like that. It's something beyond that verbal thing. It's they become predisposed to help. So why is that? It's because when someone helps us, our needs, that we have food, water, the emotional needs to be included, to be seen, to be, cared, and like that. When someone provides those needs, it unleashes this feeling of warmth, gratitude, tenderness. That you can see in animals too. Researchers, careful researchers like the primatologist Franz de Waal and like that, they have seen how animals, like the bonobos, if they are groomed earlier during the morning, and then if they get the food, they share the food with those who groomed them. Does it resonate with us? Even if someone, in the difficult time, that somebody who just, sat with us, hearing us, that gave that kind of the feeling that they hear us. Doesn't that change our feeling towards them? There's nothing religion there, nothing metaphysics there. It's pure kind of our biological response. That is that we have, been conditioned, we have been predisposed for millions of years of that's what it is. So that's where I think that, when we think about the compassion, if we want to build that sense of connection, using our intelligence today, our capacity to see who is able to provide us, who is fulfilling our needs, who is responding to where we receive, who is making a difference in my life, who has made a difference. And notice what you feel. Then from there, then you begin to see that who is making the difference. For every one of us, we are not an island in itself. We are so deeply connected with others for every need we have, every comfort we have, every skill, the talent we have. This is where if we can begin to see who made that possible for me. What is biologically there? When we shed light on that yes, that sandwich that I'm eating, the farmers who grew the tomatoes and the wheat and like that, people who prepared, stores that carried, the people working in the stores that carried, that people who, the money I have to buy that coming from my employment I have those who need my service, that made possible for me. Yeah, we begin to pay attention to that, shed light on that. It's not, you don't think that I need to feel grateful to them, I need to feel warm to them. You will feel that, because that's how we are predisposed. And that will change, that the more connection we feel with others, more safer, belonging, that we're part of the greater community, greater part. Psychologically, that loneliness epidemic we're talking about, it will be a little less. Psychologically, we will feel a little bit more safe. With that greater safety, there will be greater creativity, more energy, the greater ability to function and relate to others. So that's what I would say. There is a way for us to develop that a felt sense of connection that is the heart of compassion. That's what leads to actions to do something when it's possible. In many cases that you may not have the solutions, but then little things that we all have choice. And there's also, that's where that if we can focus in life, and also that connection is, if somebody helping us unleashes that warm feeling towards them, that make us, be more kind of helpful towards them. And that makes them more, comfortable with us, trusting and like that, and the reciprocity that flows and like that. Why not we begin with that ourselves? Do some actions each day. What we can do, small, not big. The small things. What we can do. Can we, the holding door for someone who is coming behind us. Maybe that somebody who is, that's sitting often not seen. Take a moment to just say hello. How are you? That things, people who serve on the supermarket, those cashiers, that often the people coming in the rush, and it maybe make them feel that, oh, they are too slow and like that. Just take a moment to say, hello, how are you doing? Thank you. That would change their feeling. You can feel that in you. So a lot of these things, when we think about if the more than fossil fuel, the compassion is we need today. We need today. That's something that we can begin ourselves. That each day, if we can just one thing, or maybe at the end of the day, journal also. To this day, who I'm grateful for. Just 3, 4. Just we can find ourselves being more hopeful in the world, besides, despite the chaos. Our boat will be less rocky. We will feel more safer. Life will become a little bit more easier. So let's do this brief meditation. We have very little meditation to do, but as I said that, meditation is a kind of training, kind of going through this reflection itself is a meditation also. That as we're together, we went through, but we can do a little bit more focused one. So please take a moment to just find a comfortable posture and settle in just by taking a few deep breaths. As you breathe in, just taking it, the fresh, nourishing air, life-giving oxygen, to just infuse with our whole being, nourishing our body and mind. And as we breathe out, just letting go of any tensions that we may be experiencing in our body and mind. Just release with the outgoing breath. Taking in that nourishing air, just pausing for a moment to let it infuse with our whole being, every cell. And breathing out with full exhalation, releasing those tensions that we may be feeling, worries, agitations, disconnected, all this, or just in the physical discomfort and like that with the outgoing breath. Just release. Now for a minute or so, see if you can just rest your awareness here in the present with your own breath, letting the breath to settle to its natural rhythm. And we just bring our attention wherever we can connect with it most easily. Is it at the abdomen? Perhaps you can place your hand at your belly, where you can notice that with in-breath, belly going up, with outgoing breath, going down. Perhaps you may notice, you may connect with your breath more easily at the chest, with in-breath as the lungs fill up, and empty with the outgoing breath. Perhaps at the nostril, as you breathe in, just with fresh air, the subtle, cool sensation in the nostril that you notice. As you exhale warm air from inside, in the nostril, subtle, warm sensation unfolding. Just wherever you can connect with your breath easily, see if just for a minute you can just be aware of each in-breath and the unfolding sensation of the outgoing breath, just one breath at a time. Let me invite you to now, from this place of calm, inner place of calm, see who comes to your mind, who radiates that warmth for you, where you feel when you are with them. No need to kind of force to kind of make someone into that. Just with the openness, see who comes to mind. Is your mother, brother, sister, a good friend, mentor, or perhaps even some stranger that was at a critical moment was kind to you. Who comes to mind? How you feel about this person. Is there a certain degree of warmth in your own feelings towards this person? Take a moment to sit. What led you to feel this warmth? What they did that brings you to feel warm? Something that they provided, something of your need, emotional or physical, some kind of skill that they helped you with that was needed. Take a moment to just, whatever the cherished skill that you have as a teacher, the ability to teach, the knowledge of teaching, as a doctor or nurse, your medical expertise that you do, as an artist you can do, as a chef, the ability to cook and so forth and so on, whatever you are, therapist, that your skills in helping others with their needs, as a preacher to inspire others and with your teachings and so forth. Whatever that one expertise skill that you have, through which you connect to offer to others. Take this a minute or two that we have to see if you can connect with various people who made that possible for you. Our parents have a role in that, to provide that opportunities for education to begin with, to put us in schools, to provide for that needs, teachers and others. Who comes to mind? Not rushing, pushing, just allow. The different people who may have been crucial, who may have really contributed to us, who have shaped these talents, skills in us. As you connect with those people, notice how you feel. A certain degree of tenderness, a certain shift in our feeling towards them. Perhaps, of course, like this particular talent, each day we depend on hundreds of different resources, whether water, food, electricity, roads, and so forth and so on. recipient of the countless such acts of kindness, intended or unintended, from our society. How do we feel with that recognition about other people, people in our society? Aware that there are many needs in the society also, those others. What can we do? What are things that we can? Can we see just maybe one or two actionable items that we can think of now as an individual, as what we can't individually eliminate or provide solution to all big problems, but what can we do that is within our reach? Just small things that we can write to a family member that we may not have written for a long time, just to send a little email, text message. Perhaps it may just be that people that I encounter, I'll just take a moment to see them. They too are people like me, to recognize their humanity. Or perhaps to make that when we encounter others who are providing services, whether it's the postman or the delivery person, to just say thank you. Just we could do to pay, just we will pay attention to what little intended or unintended kindness we receive from others. Be mindful of that. Would be a little bit more mindful of those small acts of kindness I receive. So let's here take a moment to see if this really sits well with you, resonates with you. How this sense of connection that we get to have others, how that it makes we feel better in that way, how we can function better, how we can relate to others better. And our lives can be a bit more meaningful as we live with that sense of connection. So let's take a moment to dedicate this practice, any goodness that unfolded for us doing this practice together. Let's dedicate towards, for us to have the greater sense of connection, and dedicating this towards many who may be feeling that lack of connection, dedicating for their well-being and for them to have the sense of connection. We can dedicate our merits for peace, healing, harmony and happiness for all beings. And let's conclude by setting an intention here. What we cultivated here, just a slight awareness of connecting to that various kind intended or unintended acts of others. We can continue, we can carry this into our life beyond this question. Perhaps many different kindnesses we receive, just to take a moment to really notice, acknowledge that as we go about for just 2, 3, 4 times, as carrying that intention to be mindful and or acknowledge. Maybe we can take this into that at the end of the day, for a week or so, maybe just setting an intention to, at the end, to journal, just 3, 4, 5 people or the groups that we have benefited from that day. Just writing down what was that, to connecting to those by way of journaling, to those kindnesses that we received. Thank you. Have a great day.